Welcome to Talking Politics. I am Paul Gable. I'm here with my good friend and co-host John Bond Sr. And today we have a Myrtle Beach businessman, Tuvia Wilkes. We're going to talk again about the lack of planning in the downtown redevelopment, development, whatever you want to call it. We'll be back in a moment. Well, welcome back. And before we get into talking with Tuvia, I got to mention one thing. This is our new look for 2020. Our producer, Jay Burgess, decided we needed a new look, and that's for sure. And so here we are with a new set. Tuvia, thank you for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have you.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
And I guess the first thing I got to say is over the last couple of weeks, we've seen the stories out there about how the Downtown Redevelopment Corporation is no longer, and the Downtown Development Corporation is now it. And the new group just moved into its new office space, which happens to be the same group that moved into the same office space. And don't believe what you read or hear in the media around here. But the Downtown Development Corporation, now as it's called, has, as the Redevelopment Corporation, for 20 years, failed everything. The city is worse off now than it was 20 years ago by far. It's worse now than it was 5 years ago, I think we could say.
Worse than a year ago.
Worse than a year ago because there's more empty buildings, right?
Spiral speed.
But what have they done in 20 years?
If you watch the toilet when you flush it, as it goes down, it speeds up.
That's right.
And the closer it gets to the hole, the faster.
What have they done in the last 20 years? What did they've done? Have they moved? What did they've done? You've been active in this whole situation in the downtown redevelopment, Tim. What have they done?
Well, David Seabuck, he had his hand in the putting the wheel, or helping to get the wheel zoning in, and
right,
and that was just so long ago in the boardwalk. But that was something that a lot of places have boardwalks. Almost all resorts have boardwalks on the beach.
They really have boards in them in most cases.
They don't have a DRC. Charleston has a lot of things. They don't have a DRC. And North Carolina, on the resorts there that we work in, they have also, boardwalks. They didn't have a DRC. So, but I think David did work very hard. I give him compliments on that. But I mean, it's like if you bat 10, you don't make it to the Hall of Fame. You got to at least have a 300 batting average, and the DRC, I would say they're batting about 1.
Wow.
And
One.
it's a shame. But we would ask this question. Of course, the city cabal, I guess they call that. They just have that one little group, and them or their wives or their cousins are on the CAB or the ZBA or the DDD or the FA. They love these letters, but each one knows everyone, and most of them go to the same church or are affiliated with it, and it's an interesting dilemma, and they hate when you question it. They just hate to be questioned because I personally know many people. I've been here 40 years. I do not know a human being that thinks that the DRC was in any way a winner.
Effective at anything.
It's effective at giving money to certain people for salaries. It was effective in taking money from other things, other areas. I mean, it's been effective in bankrupting things. I mean, you can have an effect. It's not always positive. It's negative. So when I say they had an effect, hell yes, they had an effect. A very negative effect.
They wound up buying. They tried to surreptitiously buy these buildings that we know that the city owns now, or
Undercover.
That's what I'm saying. They tried to surreptitiously do it.
Most of the people that's just moving here, and that's what's happening. We're having all these people who just moved here. They hear these stories because it's on news. They won't question anything, and so they read these things, and I mean, it's pure propaganda. They listen to Peterson on 99.5 with his propaganda station, and they don't know the real truth. I mean, they just don't understand it. And so this is the real problem, is to get the people in Myrtle Beach, to get them watching this program more, to listen to other outlets, and so they understand what Myrtle Beach is really all about.
Well, I think one thing I wanted to bring up when I mentioned the buildings is I think this is a story of travesty. It shows how the city works. You had that lady, and I forget her name, I'm sorry, that had that bar down there. She was Natalie. She was a 20-year retiree from the Army. She had saved up money when she was in the Army, and so that after she retired as a retired veteran, she came here and she bought that bar in the what we call the super block area. And there were some problems outside of the bar. And so the city used those problems as an excuse to shut her down. I mean, they literally closed her. They yanked her business license, and it cost her, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of dollars of her own money that she had invested in there, and they shut her down, and she's no longer in town. And the city council then put through an ordinance that said there can't be any alcohol.
But they wanted to take that. Didn't they want to take those buildings for eminent domain?
They threatened eminent domain, but they had no justification for eminent domain.
Wasn't that why they harassed her?
No, they harassed her because they didn't want her out.
They wanted businesses
out. They wanted her out,
right.
And so they got her out. And they said, we can't, I mean, that's terrible. It's not family friendly. We can't have establishments that sell alcohol there. We got to keep the super block family friendly. We got to move the children's museum there and one thing and another.
And the library.
And that was announced 3 years ago. In early 2017, we had the announcement about the joint building between the library and the Children's Museum. You would have thought that joint building would be done by now, but it hasn't been started because that's no longer the plan. But the key is they just now in another building in the super block, they got some person, and we don't even know the identity because the city won't give out any information about anything. It's going to put a microbrewery in there. So the city council changed the ordinance back to now they can sell alcohol in the super block again.
Here,
it's worse than dictatorial. I almost think it's criminal.
What about the warehouse right back here?
No,
what did they do with it? Tell me what they did about the warehouse. You have a warehouse. They say you can't have a warehouse.
Let's focus on this this bar they're going to open. The bar was not good for anybody else in this city but ever who they've handpicked. They did not put it up for public bid. They did not tell anyone and say who's the highest bidder. And they did not. They did it all behind closed doors. And its alcohol is very good to sell if you're selling if one of their friends or cohorts are selling it. If they pick out who. This poor innocent girl, I met her before she did this bar. She looked at one of my properties. She was a wonderful veteran of 20 years, saved her money, and they crushed her. They crushed her for pure personal reasons, and then they're putting one of their friends in. I mean, it's criminal. It's not done in Russia like this. It really is not done in Russia like this, that you say this is no good for alcohol. Oh, wait a minute, my cousin wants to open a bar there. It's good for alcohol, but just for your cousin.
I know.
And the people of Myrtle Beach need to see this, and they need to see, we're going to see what goes in that, and I promise you there's a connection to some business person from the council.
I agree.
And I already know what it is, but I'm not going to say it.
And we got to take a break there, but we'll be back with more interesting talk. We'll be back in a moment.
This was one of my greatest accomplishments, to be awarded the Restaurateur of the Year in 2016, not only for Myrtle Beach, which I won the first segment, and then it goes to the state of South Carolina. So to go up against cities like Charleston and Spartanburg and Greenville, it was an amazing thing, and I'm still in awe and amazed that it happened. If you've never been to my restaurant, I'd like to welcome you here because I think we do an excellent job and you'll enjoy the service and atmosphere at Angelo's.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm a server at Brothers Grill, and as a server here, I like to make sure everybody has amazing service and good fresh food every single day. We serve lunch and dinner from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m., our happy hours from 4 to 7, and we're located on 5900 North Kings Highway. Follow us on Facebook at Brothers Grill Myrtle Beach.
Well, welcome back. We're here at our studios at 605C North Kings Highway in Myrtle Beach. We have Tuvia Wilkes with us, Myrtle Beach businessman. We were talking about, and we're going to continue to talk about, the lack of effectiveness from this Myrtle Beach City Council in doing anything positive for the business community that they claim to want to help so much. But we were talking about Natalie and her bar, and we put a new bar in. And I think you were making the point right at the end. They didn't know Natalie, or they didn't like Natalie, or whatever. They were determined to put her out of business. They successfully did that.
No, excuse me. They were determined to put her out of business and to take her property. And to take her property, and by rook or crook, they used an undercover real estate agent. Everything was done. I mean, it was really like a Russian takeover of the property. And that's what's going on all of Myrtle Beach. It's like a Russian takeover of property, and one or two people that's involved get all the marbles.
Well, and see, you know, the problem is, I think you were saying something about the city council doesn't care because they're playing Monopoly with other people's money.
Everyone is suing the city of Myrtle Beach. Listen, guys, everybody is suing the city of Myrtle Beach. They don't care. They don't care how much money it is. They don't care. They will never admit fault. They always settle out of court, and that way nobody ever gets to hear the real story.
And it's happening. It's happening. Continues to happen because the citizens allow it to happen. It's just that simple. You got a certain block. You know, most of our city councilmen come from the north end up there, live within a few blocks of each other. Yeah. That north end is the group that votes. And you had some good candidates in this last election that didn't make it because, again, they've basically, I guess, taken the will to vote out of the people in the south end and what have you. Market Common turned out a little bit, but didn't make a difference. But as long as the citizens of Myrtle Beach don't come out and vote these people out, this kind of mob mentality at the city council level is going to continue.
Well, it's an interesting thing to me that, like, we get back now to they're changing the downtown redevelopment to downtown development. And I mean, nobody gets that. It's also smoke and mirrors. I call it rabbit's foot politics in Myrtle Beach. They just take a rabbit's foot and rub it really, really hard and just hope that whatever they say comes true. And if it don't, they'll cover it up, and next year they'll do the same thing.
They'll have a new story, and we won't talk about the old. And if somebody says it's a failure, you got the mayor running around, oh, we got to be positive and we got to look forward. It's absurd. I wish reality would strike Myrtle Beach, but so far it hasn't.
Well, you know, nobody wants to I make the joke that you always blame someone else. They say, why? I say only a fool blames himself.
Going back to Natalie again, isn't she suing the city?
She is suing the city, like everyone else.
Well, she happened.
And she's going to win because she had one altercation outside of her bar.
Uh-huh.
And
was that the reason why?
They have every week
What
now.
about Broadway? Don't they have
Broadway? There's a rape 2 weeks ago at Broadway. There's shootings. There's fightings and beatings, but there's no public nuisance there. But Natalie had one little altercation. She's a public nuisance, gone and buying the property. Why is the city not calling Broadway a public nuisance? Why are they not buying their property? You understand something? What's good for the goose is good for the gander.
But that whole Broadway
Except
to beach,
in Myrtle Beach.
that whole Broadway to beach is owned by Burroughs and Chapin. They're not going to attack Burroughs and Chapin, but a little young lady like Natalie, they can take advantage of.
What's right is right.
Don't you think or not? No,
I think what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong.
Well, I'll tell what's
and when
right.
you go to the boulevard and you see the thousands, tens of thousands of arrests for drunkenness and drunken assault and drunk driving, and that's not a public nuisance. But one poor veteran opens a bar, and they started on her from day one.
They did.
Well, that's
They
the
didn't
point.
start
That's
on
the
her
point.
because they had heard things. They started on her when she applied to open that bar, and that's just a fact. And again, it won't come out because the city will settle with her, and then the taxpayers again won't know anything. They won't know exactly how much money they paid. They don't know about the lawsuit they settled last week with the police raid, and I understand it was millions and millions of dollars. But the city and the citizens that are voting for these people have no idea that that's even happened. They have no idea, most of them, most of the people out there have no idea that suit was settled last week. And it was for millions of dollars. And they won't know about Natalie's. And so it just keeps recurring. And they just keep doing the same thing because they have a way of hiding it. They fight their personal battles openly using taxpayer money. And then when they lose, they settle out of court and the taxpayer doesn't know what happened.
That's right. You're absolutely right.
But
Now,
I want you to tell me and the folks about the how they've changed this week from the old downtown redevelopment to the downtown development. Please tell us all what has changed. Please.
well, there are two less letters.
There was no change.
There
That's-
are two
that is-
less letters in the name.
Yeah, but there's no change.
It's not redevelopment anymore, it's development, but it's the same people running it. It's the same people funding it. It's the same people
Well,
overseeing
who's funding
it.
it? Who is funding it?
It comes from city
Coffers. So the
coffers.
taxpayers.
But there's no change. That's the point.
Yes, except that
They
we
say
don't-
it's new, but it's
we don't
not.
have two letters in the name
or
now.
whatever. But
It's the
didn't-
same offices, the same people,
Okay,
the
so
same
that's the
approach,
point.
and I had to laugh that the director there was quoted in the newspaper as talking about this great new development plan they have for the downtown city of Myrtle Beach that was come up with from the citizens, and she hopes that the citizens will like it. Well, if the citizens decided it, wouldn't they like it? And the citizens didn't decide it, and that's the whole thing. You're talking about smoke and mirrors.
It's just
It's all
there's-
propaganda. It's all talk and no substance.
Well, where I'm from, there's a difference between smoke and mirrors and blatant lies. And
I
when you
think they meld together
and
here.
shame on the Sun News for writing that story,
they don't-
saying that
They're waste
they
of
just got
time.
moved into an
Waste of
office.
paper, waste of print.
It's the same office. It's the same people,
That's
exact
right.
people
It's-
in it.
that's what we
The
said.
folks out there, they ain't nothing changed. The
Before
same.
we leave the subject, tell me about the warehouse, please. The warehouse right back
right
there.
behind us here, which is right
A warehouse.
close to
Was it a
Supermart.
warehouse? It's a warehouse.
It was the Wings
warehouse.
warehouse for 30 years,
Right.
and it's 40,000 square foot. It is a warehouse. It's has no other function but a warehouse. We leased it, and the guy went there to the city, and the city, the
Said-
famous state is exactly what the city guy said. Ain't gonna be no warehouse
why?
in that there warehouse. I
Tim.
mean, you really can't make it up.
Tim.
I mean, this is an actual fact, and this is exactly the way he talks and exactly the way he stated it. And I'm not mocking him.
But why
I mean, God
would they
help him.
want to have an empty building when it could be
Nobody
a tax
knows.
Well,
revenue?
They don't care.
Tax
Because they don't
revenue.
care. They would rather buy it
But
cheap.
I don't understand that. What the heck's wrong with
Because
that?
somebody
For
involved
30
in the
years,
city is going to end up personally owning that building.
That used to be a warehouse for furniture.
But the point is this: the city is still getting the
But it
most
doesn't make
the most
sense.
amount of taxes that the city gets is from property tax.
Is it because of you that they're saying that?
Well, they don't care whether
They're
the
still
buildings
getting the
are-
property tax.
They
They're
don't
still.
care
I
whether
just
the
paid a check for it. I just paid a
Did you
check for
still-
seven. I just
and
paid
you
a
can't,
check.
and you can't get someone to lease that.
They don't care because they're still getting the tax money from the property.
See, that's the key.
They have assessed.
Oh, wow.
They assess the property value.
Well, what happens
Whether it's rented
what
or
happens
not.
you don't pay the tax?
They don't charge you more if it's rented or less if it's not. They charge you the same. So
now, the argument could be made they're losing some money on business license and this and that, and they certainly are.
Well, I didn't-
but it's still, the greatest source of revenue to local government is property tax.
that's right.
But they're still getting the taxes.
Of course. The building is still there. Property's still there.
So
They
he
get
has,
to-
so he has
They
seen
get
all
to
of this.
punish. They get to punish property owners they don't like, and they can end up with one of their friends buying
but-
it on the cheap. And as soon as this, or the city gets it, and as soon as they get it, like Natalie's bar, they said no alcohol, and it was no alcohol for nobody in the county of Horry could open that as a bar, but somebody they wanted could. Only one person. The same with the warehouse. They'll end up taking it because how long can you pay taxes and mortgages on something? They'll end up taking it, and one of their friends or them will end up doing it, and immediately the zoning will be changed. Immediately,
They'll
you
open
can
up
put
as a church.
No, they will immediately open it up as a warehouse. Just like
You
they
think so?
open Natalie's back as a bar.
But you can
they
go-
will
you-
they will open that up as a warehouse.
Well, then you can come back and sue them. They discriminated against you. Why would they discriminate against a person that's very fair like yourself?
Why?
Why? Why would they do that?
Because they
You're a
take personal
businessman.
vendettas.
For
They're
40
human
years,
beings.
you've been a businessman right
He's
here.
not
paying
part of
taxes.
And I've been an honest and a smart businessman, and the city of Myrtle
And
Beach
fair.
hates honest and they hate smart because you figure out all their
But aren't
games.
you fair? You're fair.
I'm very fair.
Okay, there you
Everyone knows that. I'm very honest. I'm fair, but fair doesn't have nothing to do with the city now.
But you're such a likable guy. Why would they?
It's not me, Jonathan. There are 131 empty storefronts in this city. You
What?
know how many there are in North Myrtle Beach? None. You know how many in Charleston? None. You know how many in Virginia Beach? None. In Daytona Beach? None. It's zero. This is the largest financial expansion known to human beings. If you ain't renting them now, you ain't going to. And they know that. And they just put roadblock after roadblock after roadblock for the businesses.
But
Because
aren't
they
but
want
aren't they
them.
doing something to get those?
They
empty buildings?
want the businesses to fail, and no one
Wow.
can figure out exactly why. But we know that there's no other explanation except they want. They didn't let this building we're in was leased to a church, and they said no church here,
Really?
no church here.
Did they say because it wasn't
But
family
they sent
friendly?
$5,000 to the church that the city manager goes to every month.
Well, on that point, we got to take another break, and we'll be back.
This is really hot. Hot.
This was one of my greatest accomplishments, to be awarded the Restaurateur of the Year in 2016, not only for Myrtle Beach, which I won the first segment, and then it goes to the state of South Carolina. So to go up against cities like Charleston and Spartanburg and Greenville, it was an amazing thing, and I'm still in awe and amazed that it happened. If you've never been to my restaurant, I'd like to welcome you here because I think we do an excellent job and you'll enjoy the service and atmosphere at Angelo's.
Well, welcome back. We're here for our third segment. We're at our studio at 605 C North Kings Highway in Myrtle Beach. We have Tuvia Wilkes with us, and I want to talk specifically. We've been talking about the super block. We've been talking about the lack of redevelopment under the Downtown Redevelopment Corporation. Now it's going to be lack of development under the Downtown Development Corporation. But there's something that we got to put in. I understand. They talk about, reading in the newspapers, they talked about this great plan they have for the downtown. I don't think there is a plan for the downtown. But in the arts and entertainment district, right?
That's what they call it now.
They call it the arts and entertainment district. We have a construction company that bought a piece of property that the city had owned. The city is financing 90% of that purchase for a year until the construction
I
company.
think 100%.
I think it's 90.
Oh, it's
I think
not? I heard 100.
10% down. But anyway, they they're financing it for a year until they can get grants in place that they hope that the government will basically finance the purchase of that property for the private construction company in the arts district. Now, the interesting thing about that piece of property is we have sitting here with us a gentleman who, with another gentleman, put in a cash offer, and let's say the city sold that property for, I think it was $158,000 was the sales price to this construction company. These gentlemen put in a cash bid, their own money, cash up front, $200,000 for the property, same property, and they were going to put in an art studio.
Mm-hmm.
Art center.
In the arts
An
and
art
entertainment, an arts center in the arts and entertainment district, instead of a construction company. That's what's going on with development or non-development in Myrtle Beach.
But isn't the city underwriting the construction company?
Yes,
they?
they somehow.
90%.
Are they doing it?
They got a 9% loan.
So
No.
that's underwriting, isn't it?
But you're missing the point. Everyone in
Well,
the
what's the
city is
point?
missing the
Give us
point.
the point.
The point is, did you know there was there was for sale?
No.
John, did you know? Jay, did you know? Did any of you
I didn't
citizens
know
out
that.
there know
I
that it
did
was
not
for
know
sale?
that. I did
It's
not.
because it was no open bids for it.
There's no
We
bids
heard
for
about
There's
it.
no
We heard that they were
advertising
going.
of it.
We heard they were going to do it, so we put the bid
Well, where
in.
was the Sun
They
News?
were upset that we
Where
found
was the
out
Sun
about it.
News?
The Sun News won't report.
They're
They-
still outside
Where are
the
they?
city.
They're talking about a new building.
because the city is giving cover for the council.
Oh, that's unfortunate. That's
But no,
unfortunate.
everyone should know
The
this
Sun
bar
News
that's
is not doing
opening.
their job.
All the
Sun-
business people out there. Did you know was there any open bids for the bar that's opening now?
They
No
could've-
one knew it because
They could have advertised in the paper. The
but
Sun
there
would
was
have
no
made
law.
money.
The law said you couldn't have alcohol then. They only passed the alcohol law after they put their guy in. There was no open bids. There is no open bids.
What a
for this
revelation! Oh my
They
God.
made the commitment
I didn't know that.
to allow the microbrewery to go in there. Then they changed the law back to allow alcohol to be sold.
And they
again in
won't
that
say who the
location.
microbrewery is
No,
at the
we
bar.
don't know who the microbrewery is.
Who the owner- you
We
don't
don't
know.
know who.
Well, the public don't know. Not us, but the public as well.
I don't know. Do you
Nobody
know?
The
knows.
public doesn't know either.
They're not. The city's not telling
Because
anybody.
none of it's being done open. It's city property, it's taxpayer property, but it's not open bids. Everyone needs to know this. Every citizen needs to know out there
It's not
that
open.
they're not on the same level. There's about 50 people in the city that are in a little group, and they get it all. No one else in the city is allowed. No other owner is allowed to go and bid on it. No one knows what is to bid. And there's
So
20
it's a clique that's getting everything.
There's
they want.
20,000
It's a clique.
real estate people in this county. How many of you knew that there was that you could go bid on the property? How many of you went and called your client and went and bid on the property 2 months ago, 3 months ago? None,
I know.
because no one knew it. Because I've called every brokerage firm in the city.
But
that's
let's
unfortunate.
talk about another thing. First of all,
Unfortunate.
I would contend that the city should advertise at properties and request for proposals for them, and have an open request for proposals for those properties. Maybe that isn't even going to make any difference because you guys heard about it. You put in a bid for it that was 25% higher
21% higher.
than
All cash.
all cash than what they took that they're underwriting for 90% of. So I mean, I guess it doesn't make any. The city's not interested in doing the best job for the citizens it represents, as you say. It's only that
Well,
little
it
core
shows,
group.
It shows a discrimination against him. That's what it shows.
Not only against
No,
him.
it's not against me. It's
what do
no
you mean?
citizen here.
What are
It's
you
not
talking
about
about?
me.
Not just
There's
against
no
him.
citizen
What
here
about
knows
the
about
warehouses?
any of this.
It's not the warehouse. I'm going
But
back to the warehouse.
there's
again.
there's
I'm going back to the
130
warehouse
more
again.
business
You mean to
owners
say
who
that
can't rent
they-
their properties.
You own
They're
the warehouse,
looking-
and they say you can't put a warehouse in the
Jonathan.
warehouse.
And you're right.
So what
they
does
are,
that mean?
They are discriminating.
What does that mean?
Go down
against
Kings
him, but
Highway.
there's
It
more
didn't
They're
make-
against him.
discriminating
They're
against you.
they're
My
discriminating
opinion-
against everyone
I'm saying
but
this.
their
This
group.
is my opinion. My opinion is that there's a discrimination against you. That's all.
That may
My
be, but
opinion.
it's
But
me
it goes a
and
lot
the
bigger than
citizens.
that. Is the point
I'm
we're
giving
making.
is my
No,
opinion.
it's the me
Yeah.
and the citizens because there's I'm sure many people if they knew they could have opened a bar there
but
would have
come on,
would have bid on it.
yeah.
And if it's the
Yeah.
city taxpayer money, why would they not want to get more money? Why would they not want to open
get
bid?
the
We're
most?
giving $200,000 in cash with someone from Pittsburgh as a partner. And they take less, $150,000.
I told you all
and then
before on this.
They're underwriting 90%. So
And
what
this
does
is how
what does
Russia
that
is
tell you?
born.
What does it say? I don't know. What does it say?
You know, if you go to the city hall, I bet you there's a big poster of Pelosi and the mayor of New York, Blasio. You know, I mean, this
De
is
Blasio.
how
Blasio.
This is how Russia was born. I'm telling you, this is how Russia was born. Everything is a secret society. Everything is
Paul.
under the table.
I think we're about
yeah,
ready to go.
Yeah, John's pointing out to me it's time to close our
Well,
time here. Thank you for joining us, Tuvia.
You're a refreshing voice of reason.